One of the Herschend family's 3 objectives is to be a great place to work for great people. What an amazing company. Now, studies have shown that if you've got a great boss, you've got a great work experience. The challenge is this. Many people think, okay, I'll be really nice and that'll make this a great place for my employees to work. Some of the nicest people I've known have made terrible bosses. They haven't confronted people that need to be confronted, haven't dealt with situations needing to be dealt with, actually creating a terrible place to work. So if being nice isn't the answer, how do you do it? Studies have shown a strong statistical correlation between certain employee satisfaction questions and companies that are highly profitable, have high levels of customer satisfaction, high levels of employee satisfaction. As a matter of fact, these questions measure how strong your boss is, and they measure how engaged your employees are. If an employee is disengaged or unplugged, it's not necessarily the employee's fault. Let me share a story with you. I was park duty manager on a 90-degree day, and I came across a young man who was selling pretzels and ices. And he had a big out-of-order sign on his icy machine. Kind of knowing the answer, I asked him, "How many pretzels have you sold today?" He said, "None." I said, "Have you put a call in on your icy machine?" He said, "Yeah, I put a call in over a week ago. I put several calls in." No one ever came. Can you imagine how frustrating it would be to try to hit your goal of $500 in sales and you don't even have what you need to do your job? Pretzel Dude unplugged and disengaged because he was cared for poorly by his boss. So, if you want to make sure your employees are fully plugged in and fully engaged, how do you do it? That's where this principle called the Great Place 6, or GP6, comes into play. HFE has taken those employee survey questions that predicted success, blended them with our Leading with Love principles, and come up with 6 effective leadership actions we call the Great Place 6. First, your employees need to know what's expected of them. Can you imagine playing a game where you don't know how you score and you don't know the rules? That would be incredibly frustrating. Well, that's how it is for your employees when they don't know what's expected of them, and that's a baseline expectation that you need to meet. Secondly, you need to make sure your people have the supplies, equipment, and information they need to do their job right. Nothing will unplug or disengage an employee more quickly than not having what they need. Remember Pretzel Dude? And you don't need to run around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to get your people what they need. But instead, you need to run such a well-oiled machine that you get your people what they need before they even run out. Next, you need to make sure your employees get to use their skills and abilities every day. Basically, you get your aces in their places. And your employees will love their job when they get to do what they do best. Fourth, you as the coach need to make sure your employees feel praised and encouraged. Mother Teresa said people crave appreciation more than they crave food. And most bosses give out a whole lot less appreciation than they think. I used to consider myself this font of appreciation and sunshine. And then I started taking 3 coins in my left pocket, and I wouldn't move them to my right until I'd appreciated 3 people that day. And you know, it's embarrassing how many days I still had 3 coins in my left pocket leaving my team unappreciated that day. Fifth, you need to make sure your employees feel cared for personally. Interestingly, this principle was derived through statistical analysis, but it's incredibly consistent with HFE's Christian values and ethics. And finally, the last question on the Great Place 6 is my favorite because it captures everything that we're trying to accomplish. And that is, taking everything into account, I would say this is a great place to work. So let's go back and take a look at Pretzel Dude, assuming he's experienced the Great Place 6. First, he would know exactly what's expected of him. He needs to be on time, he needs to be friendly, and he needs to hit his goal of $500 in sales. Secondly, he'd have all the supplies, equipment, and information he needed to do his job right, including the small things like ad machine tapes and pencils. Third, Pretzel Dude gets to use his gifts and abilities every day. He loves to sell and he loves dealing with the public, so he's loving life. Next, Pretzel Dude feels really appreciated. His supervisor and the director both stopped by that day to let him know they noticed that he'd hit $750 in sales on a $500 sales goal, and they both noticed how friendly he is and mentioned that to him, so he feels really appreciated. Finally, Pretzel Dude feels cared for personally. He got into a car wreck a few weeks ago, and his boss went out of his way to adjust his schedule and actually connected him to some resources so that he could see a doctor and get his car fixed. And so he feels really cared for personally. If we take care of those first 5 things, the 6th one will take care of itself. This will be a great place to work for a really great employee. There are 2 things that we're asking you to do with the Great Place 6. First, we want you to memorize them. Not so much know the exact words, but we want you to commit these principles to your heart to make sure that you're living them out every day on your job. And next, we need you to make sure you know what the Great Place 6 scores are for your location and know what your goal is so that you know how you're doing. I want to get back to this concept of engagement. Imagine your employees were on a competitive rowing team and you were surveying them on the Great Place 6. Those employees who were giving you a 1 on the survey, they were mad at you and they were rowing against you. Those employees giving you a 2 on the survey, they'd be fully disengaged and unplugged. They might be in the back of the boat texting. Those employees giving you a 3 on the survey, they might have their pinky on the oar, but they're not really moving you forward. The only employees who are fully plugged in, fully engaged and rowing you forward are those employees giving you the highest answer possible on the Great Place 6. So if you had 2 boats rowing against each other and one had 30% of the team rowing, 30% is actually the US average for engaged employees, and the second team has 70% of the team fully engaged, plugged in and rowing, that's our goal for Herschend Family Entertainment, who do you think would win? Would it even be close? So how do you make this a great place to work for great people? It's simple. You focus on the Great Place 6 and the rest should take care of itself.